Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our science presentation as part of our virtual open house. My name is Tyler Buchan. I'm a teacher. I teach mostly chemistry in the science department, but I also teach some biology and Science 10. We're all really looking forward to the grade 10s joining us in the fall. I think I speak for everyone when I say that Salisbury is an amazing school. I know that you might be feeling some anxiousness or hopefully some excitement about the chance to come here in the fall. And we're really looking forward to meeting you. And I'm here tonight to talk about the different types of courses that we offer in grade 10 as far as science goes. So most people end up taking Science 10, which is a general science course. There we have units on chemistry, physics, biology, and a unit on climate science at the end of the course, which takes some different physics, chemistry, and biology and wraps it all together. Science 10 is an academic course. We sort of recommend that people have had a degree of success in science and math in grade 9 to decide to take Science 10. And Science 10 itself is a pathway into Chemistry 20, Bio 20, Physics 20, or Science 20 in grade 11. We also offer Science 10 pre-IB here at Salisbury. It follows the exact same curriculum. We do the same assessments as in our regular Science 10 classes. It's just a cohorted group of students in Science 10 pre-IB that, for scheduling reasons, would take Science 10 in the first semester or in the first quarter, so that they could take Bio 20 IB during their grade 10 year as well. We also offer Science 14, which is like Science 10, it's a general science course. It has also units on chemistry, physics, biology. Only the fourth unit in Science 14 is more ecological. It's more biological than we get in Science 10. Science 14 leads to Science 24 in grade 11, and that would satisfy all Alberta high school graduation requirements. It's in science, it's different than in social or in English. We only need 10 science credits to fulfill graduation requirements, and so Science 24 fits the bill for that. A person who passes Science 14 could go into Science 10 if they wanted to, and then get into chemistry or chemistry 20 or bio 20 in grade 11, but you can't go from Science 14 into, say, chemistry 20 or bio 20. Science 14, as I mentioned already, is for students who had some struggles in Science 9 or in Math 9. We really want to, it's not just about your science grade, I think. It's about your level of comfort with math and formulas and some really basic algebra that we are going to be using during our work in chemistry and physics in Science 10. And so if a person has trouble with either of those disciplines, science or math, then we would recommend that you take Science 14. We're also fortunate to have a science option here at Salisbury. It's called Forensics 2535. It's actually a 6-credit course, forensics, and it's open to all students. In grade 10, after you've passed Science 10 or Science 14, you could take forensics in your grade 10 year, or sometimes there's grade 11s or even grade 12s who take this. It's an amazing class as well, which has, in forensics, there's units on fingerprinting, ballistics. So ballistics is the study of bullets and like firearms. There's blood splatter analysis and a whole bunch of more really amazing different units in forensics. The course, it's a great introduction to this. It's a growing field of study, forensic science, and it does actually complement other science courses as well. Even for a grade 10 student who has taken Science 10 and enrolled in forensics, they would be developing their competencies in the lab and developing, that scientific mindset and a scientific attitude and a scientific approach to problem solving. One of the really nice things about forensics as an option is that it has many labs and hands-on activities. And Miss Willman, who's the teacher, does an amazing job. And the final exam is a practical crime-solving experience that's always just amazing, and so much work goes into it, and it always turns out fantastic. We're not in a rush. I kind of went pretty fast through my little presentation, but if there's any questions right now, let's have at it.
Hi, Mr. Buchan. We do have a question about how much lab work and lab activities are there when you're taking science at SAL?
Well, we do labs in all of the units. There's, well, we start the course off with chemistry, and there we do labs about, quite a handful of labs about metals and non-metals, different types of compounds, exploring the different properties of acids and bases. As we just get used to some of the working with the equipment and learning the names of the glassware. Our work in bio sort of focuses around microscope work. Lots of teachers sometimes even during their work on bio, sometimes do a frog dissection, even though that's not really part of the curriculum anymore. We still have access to frogs that we can dissect, and it makes for a really interesting and fun activity. We do different types of labs in physics as well, about different types of motion labs, specifically about velocity and energy. I think sometimes the highlight is in the climate unit when we investigate different sources of heat and we burn some cheesies and find out their energy content.
Thank you. I know that the students are doing a virtual tour this year, but could you describe a little bit about the lab facilities here at Salisbury?
Yeah, so we're fortunate to have 3 great lab rooms. Students don't do labs in the classroom. We have 2 different chemistry labs with separate counter space, all kinds of different sinks, and also safety equipment to run our bio labs and chemistry labs. We also have what we call the microscope lab, where we sometimes do physics labs in there and do all of our microscope work and dissecting in this really large room. I would encourage you to see if you can find those on your virtual tour. Take a good look at them. There's going to be some lab equipment set up in there for some labs that we were doing last week in different classes. Yeah, I would try and find those rooms on your virtual tour to get a feel for what those rooms are like.
Great. I know one question that we often do get asked is do you have to take all 3 sciences in grade 10? So I thought you could maybe just clarify that for the grade 9s. Yeah,
that's a common question that we get. In grade 10, a student would take Science 10 or Science 14. In the past, I'm not even sure when it was, but in the more than 20 years ago was when we had Bio 10 or Science, Bio or Chemistry 10. That's no longer the case. A person would take Science 10 or Science 14 and then specialize into 1 or more of those sciences in grade 11 if a student wanted to.
I know you've talked about our forensic studies option that we have here. What would be some reasons that students would choose to take that as one of their options?
So I think forensics is a great complement to the traditional science classes, the core science classes that we have. If a person was really interested in science, to have the option to take this extra class, for forensics itself, for that type of crime-solving, investigative work. But like I mentioned before, it's a great way to get more time in the lab, to develop different skills and abilities that a person could use moving forward through grade 11 or grade 12. And also, like I mentioned before, to develop that type of scientific mindset for problem solving and that scientific approach to understanding the world.
Okay, here's another fairly common question. Can you go over again what's the difference between Science 10 and Science 14?
So Science 10 is an academic course, whereas Science 14 is more non-academic. There's actually quite a discrepancy in the expectations in between Science 10 and Science 14. There's a lot more rigor, there's a lot more demands upon students in Science 10 in terms of just the amount of content and the pace at which that new information comes at students. Whereas Science 14, it's more tailored for that non-academic stream, where a lot of the same topics are covered, say in the chemistry or in the physics, just at a much different level.
After a student has completed Science 10 and they're moving into grade 11, what are the courses that they could choose to take?
So after a student passed Science 10, we would recommend that if you had over 60% or more, that you could choose Chemistry 20, Bio 20, Physics 20, or even Science 20. I would just give a plug for Science 20, something to think about down the line. If a student wasn't going to pursue the sciences in their post-secondary, more and more institutions will accept Science 30 as a requirement or as a prerequisite for getting into a program. Now, Science 30 is a course that does have a diploma exam, and Science 20 is a great course. So if a person wasn't planning on pursuing science in their future, they wouldn't have to necessarily choose chemistry or biology. They could pick Science 20. Of course, a person who passed Science 10 could choose one of those sciences, or two, or even three.
Another question for you, Mr. Buchan. What do you love about teaching science, and why are you excited to have these students coming in?
Well, what I love about teaching science is, in grade 10, is the chance to build those relationships. I meet many students in grade 10, and then we're in the same class again in grade 11 and grade 12. That's probably my favorite thing about teaching grade 10s, is to start to get to know people right from their first semester, first quarter in the building, and then to watch the growth and the development that happens over the course of those 3 years that they're here.
Thank you. Is there anything else you would like to add?
I just would like to wish everyone a good night. I really do think it would be fun to check out the virtual tour to see those lab rooms. And I know that all of us in the science department are really excited for the new group of students to join us in the fall.
I have a question for you, Mr. Buchan. Can you share with the students a bit about the lab experience here at Salisbury?
So we're lucky enough here at Sal to have 3 different lab rooms. I know that one of the chemistry labs is part of the virtual tour, so I would encourage you to take a look at that. We do all kinds of different labs in Science 10 and Science 14. Not the same labs, but we're all doing chemistry labs, getting used to some of the equipment, getting used to the lab room itself. So we don't do our labs in the classroom. We have separate dedicated facilities, 2 different chemistry labs, and a separate room that we use for microscope work, dissections, and also physics labs. One thing that I forgot to mention just as we were doing our presentation is how after Science 10, if a person didn't think that they would continue in science in the post-secondary level, we also have a general science class, Science 20, which is a general science class, which leads to a diploma level course, Science 30, which more and more post-secondary institutions are accepting as a prerequisite or as a requirement for admission.
Another question for you. If a student really is unsure, do I take Science 10 or Science 14? Do you have any advice for them?
If a student was really unsure, it would be really a matter of their mark in Science 9 and Math 9. thinking about, we always want to set students up for success. And I would never want to see someone have a really hard time and struggle through Science 10. So I would say that if a person wasn't quite sure what to register for, that would be an important conversation to have with the guidance department here at the school.
Thank you. What are some of the things that you love about teaching science here at Salisbury?
So for myself, the thing that I enjoy the most about teaching science is when I get to meet those students in grade 10, that in September of grade 10, we spend a course together, and then many of them I have in grade 11 because I teach chemistry in grade 11 and in grade 12. And so I have the chance to be with students for 3 years and to see the growth and to see the development over that time. That's one of the things that I love the most.
Here's a question on forensics. What would be some reasons students should take forensics as one of their options?
So as I was saying, just for the interest's sake, because if a student has seen that kind of crime work on television or in the movies, and they want to learn something more about it, forensics is a great way to do that. It's also a great, as I said already, taking forensics is a great way to develop that scientific mindset and to do a lot of hands-on activities and to spend more time building up those laboratory competencies.
Another question that I think you've addressed, but we sometimes do get asked, so I thought we should go over once more, is do students have to take all 3 sciences in Science 10?
So Science 10 itself has all of those sciences built into it. So once a student is enrolled in Science 10 or Science 14 for that matter, they're both general science classes, which cover all 3 of those sciences. In grade 10, we don't have the option of just choosing 1 science or 2 sciences. We only have these general science classes available in grade 10. And then in grade 11, a person could make choices about what science to take. Stay in a general science class, Science 20, leading to Science 30, if a person knew that they weren't going to pursue science in post-secondary, or if they had a passion for chemistry or biology or physics, they could make 1 or more of those sciences their choice in grade 11.
We do have a question here from the audience about what types of labs do you get to do in grade 10?
So we do a whole range of different labs in grade 10. Chemistry labs are about exploring the properties of acids and bases, the properties of ionic compounds in contrast to molecular compounds, the difference between metals and non-metals, that type of classification of elements on the periodic table. We even do different types of chemical reactions. In physics, most of our labs are about, we do a really important motion lab, as well as a pendulum lab where we explore the relationship between potential and kinetic energy. I think the highlight for some students is we do an energy lab in that last unit where we burn different kinds of food to try and analyze their energy content. You'd be amazed at how the flames that'll come off of a cheesy.